You just got promoted. And when we're done, I'll say, turn it off, because that's the note the lady left me.
Oh, Joanna here? Oh, cool.
I thought that was Geraldine, didn't you? Over there? Yeah.
Okay, everyone, good evening. It's 5:30. This is the Monday, April 4th monthly meeting of the City of Blue Ridge DDA. Call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is we got to approve some minutes. Did everybody get those? Did anybody have any changes they noted from the February 7th meeting? No? Do I have?
I'll make a motion to approve the February 7th minutes.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor? Approved. Okay. Moving on to the March 7th minutes. Everybody have a look at those. Do we have any changes with them? No. Do I have a motion to approve March 7th? Second. All those in favor? Approved. Okay. Moving along. All right.
Probably for the city.
Chairman's update. That would be me.
Probably
That
for
would
the
be.
city.
Okay. Not a whole lot in terms of anything from a chairman's report to update. We'll get into some of the committee things and go forward from there. So with that being said, we'll move straight into the treasurer's report. The ending account balance for the DDA as of April 1 or March 31 was $412,251.81. We took in March $3,445.19 of 1% of hotel motel revenue taxes. As we've discussed in the past, the parking revenue the DDA once received is now been shifted back over into the hands of the council. So that was our take-in for the month of March. We also took in $4,810 in February. So that's where we stand from a financial standpoint. So moving forward with that, we'll just jump right into the committee information. We'll start with Nicole.
An update on the wayfinding signage or the parking signage. I spoke to Tom over at Signal Signs. There was a slight delay based on questions from city management, city council, but they are moving along. We'll get a new quote since we nixed the location 3 and 4 from the packet that I presented at the previous meeting in February. And we'll get that tomorrow, in fact. So then I'll email it out to everyone. It'll be less than what's already reviewed. So what came in prior to was about 69, and that was the one that was shooting over the moon of electrical and whatnot. We have removed 2 locations, and so it'll be a little bit less than that. It'll be about 65 to 60.
So 3 and 4 were
The ones that were by the co-op. That we said we couldn't, it was kind of that odd entrance, so we've kind of scrapped that one right now for this phasing.
Okay.
And just moving forward so we can get started on that project.
okay.
The only issue is I do need to get Eric and Tom over at Signals. I'm tired. I'm setting up a schedule with them to start going through the locations and working out. The question was the ownership of one of the hills over by UCB, and we'll get that clarified. So we're in the process of going to have Eric kind of just start jumping in and get him in touch with Tom Tyson at Signal Science. Okay, so that's that update.
Well, I did have something.
Sure.
2 council members asked me about these, you know, what they look like and all that. So if you could reach out to maybe to Eric, and Eric can get with you.
We've communicated recently, yes, we have.
Okay.
And I'm going to get with him after this because I just spoke to Signal Signs again
Okay.
and sort of schedule something out.
Okay.
And I know
Right.
Caesar's also spoken to them as well, so there's been multiple. And then another topic that's also come up before us is a public art ordinance or signage ordinance. Currently under the signage ordinance, and I'm going to backtrack, one of the issues is the formerly known as High Country Art Gallery is coming in here now called Four Elements Gallery, and they themselves were putting in a mural on the side of that brick wall that was there. It had no lettering, signage, or anything. It was simply mountains and a tree. They were doing an elements-based mural out of their own pocket. Currently, the signage doesn't identify public art. It really falls in line with, I have a copy of it as well. It falls in line with signs and outdoor advertising. It is very clear as far as dimensions, percentage rate by square footage of a building, but there's quite a few loopholes when it comes to public art or muralscapes. And that is going to be, I've discussed it with several council members and the mayor as well, with Eric. We've been in communication about it. And so I think the biggest thing is that we really need to address is the possibility of, not the possibility, but we need to clarify that ordinance. Because as it stands right now, it simply states it as advertising. And there's quite a few public art projects and possibilities that are coming through, including a TPD grant that has come through the county and the chamber, and ones that have done privately and that have not been really, if we're going to enforce them and stop that project, then we really need to go ahead and clarify what we mean as far as signage, the definition of signage, and what that is also referring to as far as it comes to public art. We're not reinventing the wheel in doing so. I have several copies from, the most perfect one I think is the city of Hateville has an incredible ordinance where they have it very similarly structured. It went from signs and advertising to signs and murals. And they clarify the defining factor between them. They even spell out historical murals, similar to what we have as the Pope at the end of the street, and preserving those. I'm sorry if you can't hear me. Okay, I'm rolling away. So, we do have quite a few, the city of Tallapoosa, there's also a process for it. My bigger concern in what I do for a living is that there definitely needs to be guardrails when it comes to public art and signage and ordinance with regards to that. I'm all for everybody painting and having artistry, but I do believe that there needs to be a set of guidelines and guardrails and a clear path on if someone is to do a mural, what that looks like and what that process is. Luckily, the DDA, and this is not uncommon, the city of Hateville, city of Tallapoosa, has it in place that the DDA, every DDA has a design committee in its place. Whether I'm here or not, it'll live as a legacy that there is a process to go ahead and apply for a permit to put in a mural or put in public art, and it go through a review process that is not content-based, because that falls into, I swear I'm going to become a paralegal by the end of this, reviewing municipal lawyer codes on signage and how that affects your First Amendment rights, as well as artistry in the community, but also the regulatory rights of our city. So, I'm happy to share this with all the city council members. This especially really spells it out on the side of city council members and ordinances and murals, and Eric as well, on other precedents that have been set. So some determining factors are, there is the city of commercial speech versus non-commercial speech. If it has no signage and no words, then how can it be deemed as outdoor advertising, and what that looks like? So, I'm happy to share this along, but I do think that we need to go ahead and, in speaking with the mayor, implore that the city go ahead and start having conversations, and then I'm happy to sit at the table and have some sort of committee to go ahead and look at that ordinance and have it revised for clarification. There's quite a few, if we're going to enforce that, and which it has been enforced recently, but I think that we need to go ahead and serve for clarification for that as well, and have some sort of amendment to that ordinance. So, any questions?
Were there anything else in some of those other ordinances that would help us as a city besides mural? Did you read that?
I mean, it goes down to sculptural and things. Yeah. So I think that more so signs and outdoor advertising and painting has become quite prevalent and is growing significantly in communities. I mean, truly, it is a part of developing cultural identity. Here comes the art side of me. It develops cultural identity. It helps to provide the artistry. I mean, we are designated through GMA, or the Georgia Municipal Association, as an art town. We're an official Georgia art town. And so for us, that is just coming down the pike. And to not get ahead of it and try to properly identify it, and if we're to enforce it correctly. And I know this is the arts person saying this, but I think that we have the duty to kind of set up those guardrails appropriately so that we can have these projects done correctly, and that the artists themselves know what they're doing, the landowners know what they're doing, and we know what we're doing as far as an ordinance and enforcement.
So what's the next step?
The next step is for the city council to, again, I guess, go ahead and propose an amendment. I have some examples and whatever that process looks like for them. Angie, I guess you can speak better to that process.
You know what, you can get all that stuff to my
City attorney, right?
right, yeah, well, to Eric, and then he can let us, send it on to us to review, but, one of my concerns though is, you know, I mean, we just can't have art all just anywhere and everywhere.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, and you really can't, once you open that up, you can't really say no. I mean, if somebody wants to, what they may think is art, and somebody else don't think is, I mean, or it's offensive or anything like that. So it's, to me, it's a.
There is several examples as well as ordinances that state that it doesn't entail it as a content base, but it's also upon review of a Downtown Development Authority Design Committee, similar to any other committee like the zoning planning. Again, this is just the first step in many questions. I know that it has come up in City Council. I've seen it over the years. Why is this building being put up, and why does it not match the aesthetic of our community? Or, you know, eventually design ordinances are gonna have to happen, and this is kind of that first step, and because this is currently in place, this is the first thing that I think is, I'm seeing a red flag from where I'm sitting. And I do think that the City Council does need to address this in some way, especially from where I'm at and where we're working. There are many programs that people doing it outside of the Arts Center and county sanctioned and great work. So I agree with you that content isn't the issue. I think there is a way of doing it. And like I said, there's plenty of samples that I can provide that will help understand that. Art is subjective, and I get it, totally do. But I think that there is a way of doing an ordinance to clarification, because the enforcement right now as it sits is unclear even for the projects that do come down the pipe. Because there is no guardrails at all right now, other than can't be larger than this.
Right, yeah.
And so I feel like,
And they still have to be sizes on there.
I understand, absolutely. And then, but within that, there are other, and like I said, that's detailed and legalese that it's better to explain through paperwork, and I'm happy to share that to the council, but I do think that this is a major red flag that needs to be addressed by the city council. We have other businesses that are interested in putting up murals and having, and there's nothing wrong with murals. It's not to say that it would be done tastefully. I know that content is an issue, but like I said, there are several ordinances in place that help to provide a clean set of rules and a regulatory checklist and standard for individuals who want to go ahead and do that, how to permit it and how to review it.
I think the attorney, the city attorney, is probably familiar with this type of thing.
Yes.
So, yeah. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And then Ethan, I know that when I spoke to Mayor, the mayor, she stated that Ethan over Northwest Regional Commission, he had several ordinances that he could also back to. So we've been in communication with him as well.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so there's that fun one. And then last but not least, are you good with me introducing Kathy at this juncture? Okay. I'd like to introduce Dr. Kathy Thompson, local historian, author, founder of the Arts Center. Kathy is going to speak about, correct me if I'm wrong, Kathy, the historical preservation district, or with regards to historical preservation?
Yeah.
Perfect, okay.
I'm actually going to reverse it into two things, and the second thing dovetails with what you're talking about right now, so I'll flip them. Okay, so she's familiar with.
Microphone, please.
I thought my teacher's voice was.
Yeah, I thought they were too.
You might.
Might not be done.
I
Okay.
don't think it is at all, Angie, you recognize them.
Up on top.
It's all on the top, I think, it's- get, yeah,
All right,
Yeah.
we okay?
yeah,
Is that any better?
yeah.
Okay, so some of you may be familiar with the two historical installations at the Hampton Inn. And I have business cards, and I'm going to give everybody one. Because we have formed a company to do signage, which right now all of our clients are inside their own buildings. But it started with those two installations, the 5th floor and the 1st floor. Then we were asked by Mr. Galinsky at Riverwalk, and we will be doing a lot of stuff down there. And most recently, we have 2 clients I can't mention because we're still forming it. But we do have a firm client, and we've started working on Rum Cake Lady. And she is going to have 2 4 by 5 foot signs inside so that it's not, but that is an issue. I mean, people are beginning to want to use the history of the community as a way to enhance the community. She doesn't have time to tell how her father fought in Cuba, but there will be a whole family history of the family in Cuba. So far, we have not been asked to do anything outdoors. I have visions of a moonshine still with the guy with the straw in his mouth, you know, right in the middle of town that I don't think you want. So I would second the need for, and it could be called art, you know, so I would second the need for that. But I think in time we may be asked to do some outdoor stuff. So I think it's extremely important that whether it's a history sign, and I was glad to see that the history was in the Hayfield one, whether it's a history sign or it's an artwork or an installation, I think it's real important that you get a handle on it before it happens. My next topic is what happens when you don't get a handle on something before it happens. I think it's 3 years now that I've been doing a photo drop on my computer called Vanishing Blue Ridge. And I did not see Mike McKinney's house coming. And I don't begrudge the owner of the building, but the first house built in this town is now a wine bar. And the Dogwood. The Dogwood is in a building that was built by the founder of Blue Ridge, Mike McKinney. His first house burned in 1913, had $10,000 in gold coins in it. Only 3 of them melted, rebuilt the building that's there. That is the first lot in the town that actually had property on it. So I've been doing a photo dump and I came to town. I didn't see that one coming. And I take part of the blame for not letting people know how valuable it was and not being the agitator that I am at heart over that one. I mean, so I'll take part of the blame on that. I'm very concerned about the disappearance of the history. Okay, that always brings up National Register. I have to clarify this for the newspaper people. Be sure you explain this. National Register is a recognition that a place has historic value. And this is the misunderstanding, if you want to tear it down, you can. If you want to paint ugly signs all over it, you can. There are no restrictions. It does tie you to some federal money, but as far as protecting it, no, it doesn't. And I've been talking with a lot of people in the neighborhood that would be from the Catholic Church down to Grumpy Men, across the road, and all the way up to the African American cemetery on the top. And that whole neighborhood's being eaten into. I have a number of people that are willing to volunteer their time there to do an inventory of a neighborhood for either a local ordinance, which has teeth, and there's a lot of really good stuff, you pulled it off, of how to do it, how to form a committee. But either way, somebody's got to spend the time checking the tax records, going through all of that information. I have a group of volunteers who own houses in that neighborhood who are willing to try to protect the neighborhood. Now, we know that National Register will not bring protection or for anything downtown if you put a building on the National Register. But it does mean when they, and I had a person on the zoning board, I asked him, and he said, yeah, it would make a difference. If someone's house was on the National Register as part of the neighborhood and qualified for National Register, even if it wasn't individually, and there was a request for a variance, they would be willing to consider that. Now, that's not tea, that's just hoping that it helps. But anyhow, so I need to meet with the city. I didn't realize until recently that your district does not include that district. But then I decided, oh, all the support, all the trouble I can drum up, I will do. So what, so this is for your information.
What district
you
is
know,
it? What district it was that you were thinking was in the city?
With the city, I would like to see the city, whether it's actually people that live in that district, several of them, and I would like to see the possibility of that area becoming National Register Historic District. We are not asking for an ordinance that has teeth. We're asking for permission to do National Register. The way that the state of Georgia, and I was talking with Dan Rooney this morning, who's in charge of the program, anyhow, the way it works is the state suggests that you start with a committee that has the blessings of the city and agencies like the DDA that has endorsements. And that from there, you have public hearings. Now, we're only asking for National Register. We are not asking for an ordinance with teeth. If the city, but to get an ordinance with teeth, you have to do what you have to do for the National Register. And one can lead to the other. The suggestion is, Dan said, start with National Register, gather all your information up, get all the data. There are companies that will do that for you, including mine, but we will charge you an arm and a leg. I'm offering volunteers who live in that community and have a stake in it. So I'm offering to chair a committee to work with you to get an inventory done, and then the application is a second step. But to get an inventory of what you do have. And National Register, people think is like 100-year-old buildings. Now, I had a conversation 4 years ago with the lady who was running it then, and she said, anything from 1965 on is qualified for the National Register. It doesn't have to be 1910 or 1920. Apparently, the definition is a little different, so I'm going to try to contact y'all and see if I can set up some time with you. But I wanted to give you a heads up to what it was up to, and also let you know about I'm really excited about utilizing history as a way to enhance our community. Liz is a typical example. Liz made the comment that someone did an article on her on their food blog, and in the comment about the family said, well, before they came to Blue Ridge, they lived here and there. It's this incredible story from coming from Cuba and living in Puerto Rico and how they got here. She doesn't have time to tell it. So I think we're going to see I have another building that we were just going over today. So we're hoping that this will be a way to enhance the community.
Well, Kathy, under the design committee of DDA, we were officially, and correct me if I'm wrong, Caesar, just because you were president at the time, was that we were designated, part of the bylaws for the city is to have a historical preservation committee in place.
And I think I'm a member.
You are absolutely a member. We suckered you into that one earlier in the year. So you are part of the historical preservation committee already that is in place through the department based by the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. So looking at, when I spoke to them over at the Department of Natural Resources for Historical Preservation Division, there's so many words I want to get right. The first step is to basically, if you can find a model ordinance too that you're talking about that runs alongside, if you're saying we're going to do the National Register, the Historical Register, and there's an ordinance that kind of ties in line with it, part of that is having that ordinance, but also that inventory. So,
Right,
I mean,
because the call as to whether we want to put teeth in an ordinance or even have an ordinance is the city's. You may want to do that, you may not want to do that.
yeah, and I think it's having that information up front to say we
At
may
least
not.
get National Register.
Yeah,
And actually, the DDA, like you said before, what you're talking about is outside the boundary of the DDA. However, the city can stretch those boundaries if it chooses to, the council can, for different projects. So if the city, if you wanted to do this and you wanted to let the DDA's committee handle it with the city, then the city would have to basically vote to extend for that project the DDA's boundaries outside.
Thank you, I need to learn the route to success. And everything has a route.
And I'm happy to provide, or we're happy to provide what this current CBD or the Central Business District or DDA area is,
Okay.
overlaying that, so that we can see what area you're
There's
discussing
some
clear.
overlap in it, yeah.
You're fine.
And then as well as having a model ordinance, and I think that we can present that, we can take a look at it next month and say, yes, this is great, and then I think we can fully form a packet or information to present to the city council that we can move forward with that, or where they want to move forward with.
I mean, there's a rich history, and the merchants are very, very interested. We actually have had to say, well, talk to us in 6 months, because we're kind of overloaded right now. We suddenly have a business and didn't start with a business plan.
I agree with you that I think, and we've discussed this before, I've discussed it a few years back, was having, we did a chamber trip to other cities, and in that they had on local sites and buildings like the Gartrell building, identifying that building as the Gartrell building, so individuals knew the history behind that, even if it's a small placard.
Right, and what I don't want is those little ones that look like a miniature version of the states.
No,
Because nobody looks at them.
No, but I think that within that falls under
Yeah.
the guidelines of signage and whatnot, and having that information. It's not simply just art, but also cultural and historical reasons.
So I'm glad to hear that I need to be aware of that in this business, be aware of the sign
yeah,
restriction.
yeah.
Because we haven't hit that yet, but we will.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I support what you're doing, I appreciate it.
No, thank you, Kathy.
Now you're going to get my business card. The website I did not design, it's gorgeous, Steve Bravo did.
Yes.
Really is.
Thank you so much.
Everybody gets one. I ordered 250, so I have lots. Thank you. Boy, am I going to leave anybody out there.
Okay,
I think that.
you good?
Yeah.
Okay,
I think that's it.
all right. So, my turn. All right, so economic development. Couple things first off. I wanted to take this time to kind of look out in the central business district and a little bit outside of it, some of the new businesses that have come in recently, just to let everybody know there is economic development going in the town, not necessarily that we've done anything to, it's just the town growing itself. We have a new pizzeria here. I don't know, probably messed up, Cusinella's. This is the way I phonetically did it. The Remax Town and Country office on East Main has moved over to the new development here as well, and in its place, another store, Mountain Time on Main, is going in there. The Beauty Barn has opened up in the old, what used to be the old Hanson's restaurant. Along with Cusinella's and Remax, we also have axe throwing for anyone that needs some therapy. You can go up and throw an axe at a target. Somebody laughed about that, and that's what it says. Gold's already mentioned 4 Elements Art that has come in on the corner. And then just outside the district, you have Sublime Roots Restaurant and Yoga over Blue Ridge. So those are some new businesses that have come in here just recently. Just kind of bring them up as a thing for all of us as residents to take advantage of some of the new businesses that have come into town. Outside of that, the only other thing we've got working currently is, as has been discussed over several months, I had brought forth a proposal to look at enhancing Wi-Fi and cell coverage in town, in the central business district. At this point, nothing has been done. I've been working with the mayor, and we are working to facilitate a meeting to bring in the mayor, city council, city manager, city attorney, city finance director, and everybody to meet with the group Toro Blanco to start. And that will be their first opportunity to present anything to the city. At that point, that will give the city the opportunity to begin their due diligence, to ask questions, to establish if they're even interested in the project, or if they are interested, what would be the process and steps to take that forward. I know some of you may be here this evening to want to talk about that. I'm happy to let you speak and discuss it, but at this point, really nothing has occurred. We are not even, I would say, at step 1 of the process, if it is even going to happen. But, you know, it is going to be brought forward, and then they can begin to make their decision, because any agreements as such, with the fact that, you know, it's not something the DDA itself would enter into an agreement with because it's on city right of way. So ultimately, the city's going to have to step into some of that. But we'll welcome when we get to the public comment if someone would like to speak on it, and we can move forward from there. And that's kind of where we stand on that, and that's kind of it for economic development. So we'll get to that in a moment. Natalie,
Yes.
if you have anything.
I just have one question on that. So with that company, since nothing has really happened other than discussions with this company, last time we talked about maybe putting an ordinance in place to protect, you know, the
The city.
expansion.
Sure.
Yeah. So do you think that might be something we could look at with the city before those conversations with these vendors even begin?
Well, I think what it is, I think what they're going to do when they come is they're going to bring, just like as Nicole had example ordinances, they're actually going to bring some with them to present to the city. And that's probably the first step for mayor, council, city attorney to begin looking at. You know, if you, obviously, your background, welcome to look into that as well. But yeah, that would probably be one of the first steps, is to look at that and see if that's something that would work with. As I said before, they were willing to provide that, and then the city can make its decisions as to, do we want to look at something like this, create our own, or any variation thereof. But yeah, absolutely.
Right, so it may be a good idea then if we look into cities that have put ordinances in place.
Sure.
so
And you
that we
can compare that against what they have.
Yes.
Absolutely, and do a contrasting comparison of what they have. A lot of cities have done that, especially in areas where you have a lot of foot traffic. So there are a lot of those around. I'll be happy to look up some of those, get them to you if you want to look at some too. We can kind of compare. And then, like I said, they'll bring in what they have. And then just, I think the more information we can provide to mayor and council, the better. And let them begin doing their due diligence at that point to make some decisions as to, you know, whether they want to proceed further with it or, you know, end it there or whatever they want to do. So yeah, absolutely.
We may or may not get city emails, just to let you all know, talking. Yeah, so that should get clarified, and if not, we'll just, I don't think it's worth arguing.
So me coming to see Amy to get mine turned on is probably not the,
No, we'll wait on that, so that's it.
okay.
I was gonna say Carl Jensen Institute is doing virtual training on May 5th.
I've already.
You've already got it? Okay, that's the one I'm signed up for,
I just
so.
gotta bring the certificate
Yeah.
in.
Oh, okay, I'm signed up.
With that being
Good.
said, your cost associated with that,
Right.
when you bring your certificate, bring that as well, because you can be reimbursed for
Okay,
that training.
I will do that, I just didn't bring it today.
No, it's fine.
The other virtual.
On the 17th,
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
So I'm gonna sign up for the
So if
5th.
we're not going to do city emails,
We might still get them, I'm
I'm
talking
still
to.
using my
Yeah, I'm still
DDA.
talking